Hi there. Forgive my this shit lighting and me being a little groggy. I'm not a YouTuber. I have a job. I'm doing this from my home office. I'm just a guy with some thoughts, a guy who loves G&L guitars, and I do a little bit of music stuff here. So you'll see some unprofessional things like computer monitor lit lighting because I'm doing this at 7 in the morning and it's still dark here. You'll have dogs making mouth sounds. Yeah, you get the whole ambient ASMR thing or whatever, I guess. Anyway, as I mentioned before, I want to talk a little bit about the G&Ls I've owned. So yeah, I'm doing this at like 7 a.m. I don't know when I'll get around to actually posting it because I want to. I have a few photos, and I need to figure out how to, like in the iMovie, make the pictures appear. I've done it before. It's been a while. So who knows when this will actually be posted, if this stuff will still be relevant. I'll say up front, I just got my 7th G&L, which is amazing, by the way. I'll talk about that in a minute. I have bought them all used. And because it's the internet, everybody's got a hot take. And I think his name is Audiomo. There's a YouTuber that, because I've kind of gone down the rabbit hole to see what everybody's saying about this. And he did this thing where he's like, you have to support small businesses. And he was kind of bagging on people who said, oh, I wish, I'd gotten a G&L when I had a chance. And it was kind of like, you're too late. And let's get something clear. I mean, I'm not just saying this because I feel guilty, but the reality of the world we live in is that this isn't the consumer's fault. It's not my fault because I bought all my guitars used. It's not my fault because I one day intended to get a build to order G&L but never got around to it because they're not insane expensive, but they are expensive. G&L, from what we know so far, it sounds like G&L's problem was a combination of bad management and bad policy. The McLarens ran G&L, according to their former employees, the McLarens ran the company on loans that they overproduced USA guitars and held on to them as collateral and borrowed against that for their day-to-day operations. And apparently when they get a big shipment of the tributes from Indonesia, once the dealers took delivery and paid for those, then they paid their payments. And then the cycle continued. So obviously that puts them in a position where a tariff hike could kill them. And that seems like that's what happened. And, the fact that we didn't go and buy a bunch of new G&Ls, and also too many damn new guitars on the market. That's another thing. We're spoiled. But it's like I get the emails from my energy company saying, turn off your air conditioner because, we need everyone's help to protect the grid and save the environment. But same month, they have no problems with us building these giant data centers that all of our residential electricity use combined pales in comparison to these monstrosities. So spare me the whole blame the consumer thing. It's not our fault. It was bad business practices. It was bad policy. And it's economic forces. We're flooded with cheap guitars. And that's a problem. And, somebody like me, I feel bad the fact I own 10 electric guitars. One of them is a bass. But that wasn't a thing 20 years ago. It wasn't, because you bought a guitar because you went into a music store or a pawn shop and you played it and you liked it. And I didn't even have more than 2 electric guitars until around 2010. There's good and bad. Anyway, I'm getting off track here because I'm already halfway. I wanted to do this in 10 minutes. I've already talked for 5, so I'll shut up. But yeah, it's okay. You didn't do this. There are a lot. It's complicated. Complicated stuff is complicated. You'll be okay. So my guitars. I started playing G&Ls in 2005, 2006. But the story goes back farther than that because I first found out about G&L because I am 50 years old. I came of age during the grunge era, and G&L's big hot player when I was like in high school was Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains. He played a G&L Rampage. And I was kind of into that, but I was getting away from like kind of the desire for shredder guitars. I had like an old Ibanez kind of pointy guitar and was in the process of saving up for my first like Mexican Strat, which I replaced the Ibanez and loved much better, even though I don't really get on the Strats these days. So I saw it and was like, it had a Kahler double locking trim or vibrato if you're being technical, like a single humbucker pickup. Like it was designed for shredders. And I was like, by that time I was like, I'm more interested in being Kurt Cobain than Eddie Van Halen. That was where I was when I was a teenager. So I kind of didn't think much about him until about 10 years later. A coworker of mine, his name's Paul Michael. He plays in a band called Record Heat now. He's in Brooklyn. Funky pop stuff. They're super talented. He plays bass with them, but he played guitar in a band called the Blue Line in Washington, D.C. In the early 2000s. And I saw him play with them, and he was playing an ASAT Classic. And it sounded great. He had like this Ampeg half stack, and I was like, cool. I really like this guitar. And I filed that away. A couple of years later, I moved to Kansas City, where I remain, at least at this point, some 22 years later. But I started kind of dipping my toe back in. I hadn't played in bands for a few years, and I was like, okay, I might start, trying out for bands. And I wanted a new guitar, and I thought about that G&L. And I got this ASAT Special, which hopefully here's where the slides start, and played in a band called Saint Simone. It was a Korean-made 2004-ish ASAT. Got it, I think, for $300 or something. It was, and I held on to that one for a good decade. It was, I was in a couple of different bands using that. It started a band called Steady States with some more noise rock. I replaced it with another G&L, and a couple of other G&Ls actually, and used them a lot in the early years, even though by the end I was using Jazz Masters, and that kind of became a thing. So the second one was I decided I wanted an American G&L, and I found one on like eBay for $500. It was an S500, heavily modded. Somebody had put a Floyd Rose on it, which I instantly did not like. And they took the MFD pickups, which is like a proprietary G&L thing, and kind of part of what makes them special. A lot of things make them special. And they put like Seymour Duncan Strat pickups in them. It was a great guitar, but it wasn't great for me. And I didn't hold on to that very long. But I very quickly upgraded to a vintage white ASAT Classic. I think it was a 99. That one was a gem. And I actually just sold it last year. I bought it in 2012. It served me well. I played off and on, and there were 4 different bands I used that guitar in, and it was a lot of the Decimal Dust stuff. The guitar tracks were done with that. It records wonderfully. It was kind of it got me back in the T-style Telecaster thing, which I still love T-style guitars. Even though the ASAT Special technically qualifies. But the Classic is much more like a traditional Tele in terms of the bridge. It has the MFD pickups, which are divisive. My 2 cents is they need a lot of fine-tuning. They can sound incredible, and they sound really good by themselves or in a well-controlled mix. Live, it's a little more if you're in a band with like multiple guitars, they don't cut terribly well, I found in my experience. And it could have been like our amps, our guitars just didn't work. I played with a guitar player that was primarily Gibson's. And I seemed like I got buried in the mix. Maybe I didn't know what I was doing, but in fact, I know I didn't. So that I have had that for 10 years. I traded it in for a Gretsch 6120, which I did not bond with. And I only had that for about 6 months. So I kind of regret that, but, it gets better. So after that, I tried to go back to the Legacies. I had a couple of them. There was an Indonesian Legacy, like a Strat, kind of garbage. I don't know if it was the quality of the thing, but it was Okuome, or I could be saying wrong. Some kind of wood that was kind of like mahogany. It weighed a ton. It was over 10 pounds. It didn't sound great. I couldn't get the neck adjustment and action right on it to where I could get it at all, tame the buzz and have like comfortable action. I left it kind of high, and I don't need my action super low. I actually like a little bit of lift off the fretboard because I'd rather have a note ring clear than have it be you just barely pinch it to fret. Like, I don't need that. I'm not a shredder. But this was not good. It was a little awkward to play. So that went. I had a great another ASAT special, which is probably my favorite model. It was, and I don't have pictures of that one, I don't have pictures of either of the tributes actually, but because I didn't really ever play out with either one. It was cool. It was Korean made. I bought that just a couple of years ago. It was kind of one of those that it was neat. It was super light, like swamp ash body. It had like, I'm kind of like, it's the gold. It was in the Goldilocks zone with necks. Like, you can have it too thick, too thin, just right. This was like very thin shredder neck, and it felt weird to me. I can hang with like a modern C, but when they get too thin, it's kind of like, it just doesn't feel like there's anything in your hand. I never wanted to pick it up. It sounded wonderful. So I sold that and bought something else. I don't even remember. I also had someone else's build to order. Is a 2016 S500. That was the one where it went overboard with the gadgetry. It had, out of phase switches. You had like 7 different pickup configurations. You had the passive treble and bass controls to where you could do treble and bass. Cool, awesome, all good things. Unfortunately, that all of those variables means dialing in a good sound can be tricky, and I never wanted to take it, like play with bands in it. And at that time, I was still kind of playing in bands, and there's so much going on around you, a volume and tone knob is enough and a pickup, like a 3-way pickup selector is plenty. Maybe a 5-way if you really love Strat sounds. But, all of those little, there were a couple little toggle switches and like 4 different knobs, and I don't need all that. And it was good. It was not great. It was good at a lot of things, great at really none of them. Extremely well-made guitar. Just wasn't my flavor, and that's kind of where been my experience with a lot of G&Ls other than that white ASAT, is that they were all close but not quite. Let's see. So I think that's all of them. Okay, I'm still way over my goal. But so this brings me to, let's see here. This is I think it's 2006. You have to, for G&Ls, their serial numbers aren't absolutely accurate. So you have to pop the neck off and look at the body. I'm not going to do that yet because I just got it, and the strings felt right. I think they were like 10, probably around 10s. And I was like, no, I'm not going to, I'm cheap. I'm not going to just destroy a pair perfectly good set of strings just to peek under to find the exact year it was made. But I think it's around a 2006. It's an ASAT special. Really cool color. I don't know how well this will come across. The pick guard is I think it looked kind of parchment in the pictures, but it's really more of a cream color. And the paint is Fiesta Red. Very kind of a Fiesta Red kind of varies from a bright red to kind of almost a coral. This is more on the coral side. It's very unique looking. And I like it. It's not something I would have ever thought to pick for myself if I were picking the colors, but it's very different. And the way this neck has ambered over the years is beautiful. So like this, really nice. I really like this neck, and it feels great. I think it's the U profile, which I usually don't get on too well with the U-shaped necks. I don't like that shoulder on there, but this is really comfortable. This may actually be the one that finally, makes up for my getting the ASAT. Oh, cool thing. It's not super light. It's like 7.4 pounds, which G&Ls can get very heavy. People gripe about that a lot, but also, I don't know if you can hear that. It's a semi-hollow. Yep, no F-hole. It's a semi-hollow. And I don't have my whole recording rig. I might do a sound demo with it later when I have like all of my audio interface and stuff plugged in. Right now I'm just going off the computer microphone. But it's loud unplayed. So it's as loud as I have too many damn guitars. I have an Epiphone Riviera and I have a Heritage H535, both semi-hollows. This is as loud as them despite not having an F-hole unplugged. The Casino, and I have an Epiphone Casino, it's a fully hollow. That obviously is almost as like a small acoustic guitar. It's so loud. But I was shocked. And a lot of people say that is the sign of a really good guitar is how it sounds acoustically. And I'll talk some about the features that it may be partially the semi-hollow things. It's also maybe part of the bridge in this design is one of the G&L's kind of special things. It's the saddle lock bridge. So there are two components that make it unique. This is a top loader. But this hunk of metal here, there's a part that goes into the body. And Leo's idea was that the vibration of the strings, the strings should be parallel to the body and the vibrations will move through the guitar and make it more resonant. I guess that's debatable. People on the internet will be fighting this fight for years about how much of a difference wood makes to the tone, but whatever. I'm not. And the other issue is that your saddles, there's a little screw in here that pushes all the saddles tight against each other. So you just have one solid mass that vibrates when you strum the guitar. I've had 3 of these. They've all been very lively and resonant. This is the only one that was semi-hollow. The others were solid. I don't know, is it correlation or causation? I can't tell you because I just know that the 3 guitars I had with this thing all were very resonant, lively guitars. Could be other things. Lots of things affect tone. The other thing that's a G&L specific thing are the MFD pickups. Also a controversial thing. I'm going to set this down because I can't get into the mechanics of it, but they're basically a broader spectrum pickup, somewhat like a Jazzmaster. People think they're like P90s, but they're thin, they're ceramic. They have a very unique tone. It's harmonically rich, I think, and almost to like an acoustic. The thing about them is like if you've been playing in bands for a few years, you know that having like a tight focus mid range is great when you're so Telecasters, perfect. They tend to have a good Telecaster will be bright but not so shrill it's glassy. And because when you need glassiness, you start getting into frequency range of the cymbals. So you want to sit right there below the cymbals, well above the bass. Maybe the vocals, but if you know how to play in a band, you shouldn't be playing over the vocalist anyway. But you find yourself a nice place to sit in the mix, and then you can be heard. And it's hard to do that with the MFDs in my experience, but they're highly adjustable. And honestly, I don't know and they're sensitive to tone controls, so you have to actually use your volume and tone strategically. And each of the pole pieces here. Yeah, if you have a humbucker guitar, they have usually a screw on each of the pole pieces. This has an Allen key thing, and you can raise and lower the pickups to kind of dial in the sound you want. This one, out of the box, I put in my deluxe reverb. Whew, perfect. I'm not touching those pole pieces. But I do wonder if maybe I might have been able to make them more usable if I had spent more time working on that. So who knows? But I will never know about those. I'll know about this one. And this is, I'm in the honeymoon phase. I'll be honest, and I've been here before where I get a new guitar and you're like, oh, this is the one. This is the one guitar. I'll sell all my others and this will be the only guitar play. Oh, I'm not going to do that. If I could go down to 3 or 4, I think this would stay in there. It's got a thing, and my intention kind of longer term is to get away from playing in rock bands. I hate to say jazz, but something like jazz is probably in my future. I've done a couple of solo shows. I really like that. I kind of want to cultivate that thing. Who knows? Maybe in 10 years I'll enjoy a semi-retirement as a cocktail hour guitarist. You could do worse. I think it's better than being like a blues lawyer, or in a 70s rock band. My references are dated. People do cooler stuff than that. But I don't know. It's just like what would be a way to age gracefully in music. And I feel like the people who do it, I look at my heroes and look at the older players who I admire and think are doing cool and relevant things in their later years. Bill Frisell is a perfect example. Guy's in his 70s and still just plays beautifully. And it feels honest and real. He's not aping anything. He's still doing his own thing, and he's being very unique. And that's the kind of thing I would aspire to. And even if it means I'm playing a lot of standards, the thing I've learned about as I've started, kind of doing solo guitar arrangements is when you do a standard, it's not a cover. Especially if you do your own transcription, you are taking part in a songwriting exercise, because the main melody of the song is the only thing you need to play a standard. The rest, what chord voicings you use, a little bit of rhythmic, you have a little bit of leeway in terms of rhythm and phrasing, and what you do with those melodies, and you can still stay in those within certain parameters that's recognizable as that song. You have freedom, and that kind of thing you can do lots of cool stuff in subtle ways. So that's kind of where I'm going. Anyway, that is not the topic of this video. So those are my G&L guitars. Who knows what will happen next. I think if there are opportunities to get new ones, cool, go for it. I recommend it. Or maybe, and again, my lesson, the thing I would learn is recommend is if it doesn't wow you right away in terms of sound, maybe work on it, work with it a bit. Especially these ASAT specials. These are to me the perfect marriage of where, because Leo went pretty far out there with active electronics and stuff in the beginning, and he grudgingly kind of went back to more of a T-style with the ASAT special. That was actually the first kind of one that was modeled after a Fender model, and just basically the body shape. But the pickups are new, the bridge is different. same basic controls, but it's familiar enough and it's basic. It's not overly, but it has some unique innovations to make it a G&L and not a Fender. And that's the other thing. People are more hot takes. It's like, well, they were always going to fail if they were just trying to be a better Fender. I'm like, they're not. I mean, obviously it's Leo Fender, but G&L, Leo wanted to differentiate himself, and the market didn't. They wanted him to make Telecasters. So he made a Telecaster, but also not very much not a Telecaster. And that's cool, because he took what worked, he maintained what worked about the Tele and what people loved about it, and found ways to enhance that experience. And that to me, he peaked with that ASAT special. So I think you can't go wrong with one of those. Well, you can obviously go wrong, but if you find one that feels good in your hands, and yeah, work with pickups, adjust the pull, try different pull heights and all of that, and and use your tone control, especially in the bridge pickup, because it will be shrill if you have your tone on 10. So back that tone off on the bridge if you're a bridge pickup user. I like the neck, and I like it full on 10 because it's nice and sparkly. But also, I don't play in a band anymore, so that makes a difference. Okay, we're coming up on half an hour. I'm gonna shut the hell up, and I gotta get to work. So, thanks for listening, and have a good one.